Well, hello there, and welcome to ChessBase Workshop. My name is Steve Lopez. Thank you for clicking on that link and joining us. We've been doing searches in ChessBase, and my intent in ChessBase 10, and my intent with this has not been to show you every single possible thing you can do with every single dialogue. What I'm doing is showing you some examples, hoping to fire your imagination a little bit, showing you some basic searches that maybe you'll go into the help files and learn a little more about the search functions. I'm going to show you a search here that's exclusive to ChessBase 10. It cannot be done in Fritz and Ribka and the other playing programs. If you right-click on a database icon in ChessBase 10 and select Search, of course you've got different tabs up here at the top for different kinds of searches. I want to show you a maneuver search. And the reason why I've picked, I'm going to show you a specific one. What this will do, a couple things. It's going to illustrate the basic function of the maneuver tab of the search mask. That once you get started with this, you'll be able to use a lot of these features in this dialogue without me going step by step, button by button all the way through it, number one. Number two is you'll learn this by example and hopefully jump into the help files and learn a bit more about it. The other thing is this is a search that I get asked about all the time. There's a specific search that I get an email about once a month from somebody saying, how do you do this specific search? It's a very popular search. We're going to show you how to do it. What it is, it's a white bishop sacrifice on h7 that leads directly to mate. I get asked about this all the time. It's a really common motif in chess. It happens all the time, and people want to know how to find it. Well, we're going to show you how. The way a maneuver search works is you need to know how to tell the program what you're looking for, and that's what all these buttons and commands here will do. There's like a little code, but it's very easy to understand, and I'm going to show you how to do it. The first move of this maneuver, and it's going to be a multi-move maneuver. It's going to be white bishop captures, the black king will recapture, then a white piece will check, the black king will move, and a white piece will mate. Okay, so it's actually there's 5 steps to this. White's move, black's reply, white's reply, black's reply to that, and then the final coup de grace by white. So let's show you how you set that up. First of all, you got buttons here at the top. W is for white, B is for black. WB means it doesn't matter which player. We're not going to fool with that right now. This is a very specific search where the colors are well defined. So it's a white move, first of all. And as soon as you click that radio button, you see something appear up here. And what this is the first move of the search. You'll notice a bunch of question marks. We'll fix that in a minute. Okay, so the first thing, it's a white move. We know that. We go here to pick the piece that we want. We know it's a white bishop. So we click the capital B. And you'll notice that everything we do here appears up here in our list of maneuvers. So we have a white bishop. What square does it start on? Doesn't matter. So what we do is we go to this box and we type in 2 question marks on the keyboard. You will need to use the keyboard a little bit for this. So we have a white bishop on any square, has to go to h7. So we type in h7. Again, you need to use the keyboard to type in what the algebraic coordinates. It doesn't have to be a check, but one of the parameters people always ask about is white bishop sacrifice on h7, and it usually involves taking the pawn on h7 if it's going to be followed up with mate. So let's go ahead and have the bishop capture. So you put a tick in that box, put a check, that denotes a capture. Notice that we now have an X here in our little formula. White bishop question mark, any square goes to h7, takes something, we'll make it a pawn. So we go here for the type of piece, we'll click P for pawn. And now notice what we have, and you'll have to look close because the type is a little bit small. But this highlighted line says white bishop, question mark, that means any square. Question marks are a wild card, by the way. It goes back, way back 20 years to the old DOS days. When you were looking for files of a certain name, you could use a wild card, generally an asterisk, but in the case of ChessBase we use question marks instead. It's a wild card. White bishop on any square goes to h7, taking a pawn. That's the first move of our maneuver. Now how do we put in the next move, which is black's reply? The first thing we do is we click the Insert New button Very important, because if you start changing parameters here, it'll change whatever move is highlighted. So we need to put a new line in. So we click Insert New, and it defaults to exactly the same thing that you put in as your last maneuver. So you need to go and change it. So now we want black's king taking the bishop on h7. So we go to black, go to the pull down, king, on any square, doesn't matter where the king is going to move to h7, taking not a pawn this time, but a bishop. So we'll change that pawn to a bishop. And notice here, our first maneuver remains the same. Now our second maneuver says black king on any square moves to h7, taking the bishop. Very good. We have the first two moves of our 5-move combination. Of course, white gets the next move, so we click Insert New. Notice that it just repeats our form of maneuver. We need to change it. Now we have a white any piece. Basically, white any piece checks the king. So the first thing we do is, when we have to define a piece, we put in a question mark. Remember, that's our wild card. It means any piece in this part of the dialogue. Here it means any square. So white any piece on any square moves to any square. So we put 2 question marks there as wild cards. It's not going to capture, so we remove that. But it does have to be a check. And look here what we got. White question mark any piece goes from any square to any other square, checking the black king. 3 down, 2 to go. Let's do Insert New. This time we have to have a black move. Black king. Technically, it could be any square, but we already know he's on h7. But if you want to be real picky, if you want to be specific, you can type in h7 there. But you know what? I'm going to leave it question marks, because you can do something kind of interesting here if you leave it as question marks. I'm going to show it to you. So it's going to be black king on any square goes to any square, and we uncheck the checkbox. And notice here, black king and 4 question marks. Black king on any square goes to any square. We got one more move for the coup de grace. So we insert New. White any piece on any square goes to any other square. Click mate. Notice the check comes up automatically, because check and mate, a mate is a check. It's a check you can't get out of. White any piece on any square goes to any square with mate. Your default here, by the way, I forgot to reset this. Your defaults are as follows. 5 to 40, basically it occurs between move 5 and move 40. And length is 10. It can be up to 10 moves in length. Actually 10 ply, 10 half moves in length. I'm going to leave it at 10. Even though this is only 5 ply, I'm going to leave it at 10 ply. And I'm going to show you why here in a second. This is pretty cool. Once you've got this filled in, like I say, moves 5 to 40 are the default. I'm going to change this to 50 just for chuckles. And then we'll leave length at 10, and we'll click OK and see what happens. What winds up happening is ChessBase begins to do the search. Now, you'll notice, because you're going to hear me yammering for the next few minutes, ChessBase takes longer to do a game search, position searches, maneuver searches, material searches, than it does to do header searches. And there's a very simple, very logical reason for it that you may already have guessed. That is that the game header information, player name, tournament year, ECO code, number of moves, it's all hanging out there in the header. ChessBase doesn't have to look at the game moves themselves to make that determination as to whether or not a game where you're looking for a player name qualifies. It just looks at the headers, it fires through it really quick. It's very simple. This is a little bit more involved, because what it has to do is it has to look at the actual moves of the games, and it has to find games which qualify by having this sequence of moves that we just entered. So it has to play through the games at a lightning clip, and it's actually playing through these games in the background, behind the curtain, if you will, to find games that qualify. But in order to do that, it takes a lot longer, relatively speaking, than a header search. A header search, we'd have been done by now. A header search takes seconds. When you're doing a position or maneuver search, it's on the order of minutes, but it's not terribly long. It's not like the old days where if you did this search in the old DOS days on a 386 computer, you would go upstairs and watch television for a while, watch a half-hour TV show, and come back and it might be done. Here we're talking about it's on the order of 2 to 3 minutes to do this search on a relatively modest laptop that I'm doing these videos on. So look here, just that quick, we're up to 95%. Notice that we do have a bar down here at the corner that shows the progress and the approximate amount of time left in the search. And look what we have. We have a bunch of games here. In fact, we have about a little over 100 games that have this particular sequence. We will click on this game, and this is why we didn't change the length, and this is why we left the king taking the bishop as question marks. It's because something really cool happens here, and I'll show you what it is. We get this. What it will actually do is find games in which there is a bishop check, takes the pawn, okay, the king takes, we have another check, the king gets out of check. Now the only other criteria is because we extended the length. Instead of just putting in a 5 because it's a 5-ply maneuver, we left it at 10. It will actually include games that have intermediate moves but which still end in mate. If you see what I'm saying. The queen goes here, blocked, takes, en passant, the king captures, the queen comes here with mate. So we have some intermediate moves there as well. It's not strictly that 5-move sequence. There's some additional intermediate moves put in. And notice how short these are. There's a 12-move game in which this happens. This is pretty wild. Move 8 is this. Then move 9, white plays this. Then we have the check. King gets out of the way. Queen comes in. Black's basically sunk. And pow, there we go. So we have intermediate moves thrown in as well. So we get additional games with additional moves. Still using that same theme. Bishop captures on h7. King captures. Then we have a check. King gets out of check, but not an immediate mate. We have another intermediate move. So you get additional material two ways. One is by making the king not necessarily go from here, by leaving out the king's destination. Because the king's going to go here and there's not mate on the next move. So we leave out a destination square for the king. We leave out a starting square for the king because here we get another check. And now the king isn't on h7 anymore. The king is on g8. King comes here, queen comes here. So we get a couple of extra intermediate moves there. Another way to do the search, though, if you want to just pinpoint accurately, do it the way you typed it in. Let's go here. You've got your 5-ply combination. You take your length and you knock it down to 5-ply. Okay? Where it says length, remember that's ply, that's half moves, not full moves. So this has to be in this exact order. It has to be the bishop takes, king captures bishop, white checks, king moves, white mates. No intermediate moves in there. So you're going to get less information. You're going to get fewer games, but it will be that exact sequence because you put in a length that is exactly the number of ply of the sequence that you input. We put in a 5-ply sequence. We put in a 5. We got to wait a couple minutes. Here again, remember, you go down here to the status bar. It does take a little extra time to do the search because it's looking into the games. Also, don't sit there with a stopwatch because it says 1 minute, and if it takes 1 minute 3 seconds, write to me and say this was inaccurate. It's like when you're downloading something on the internet and it gives you an approximate time that your download is going to take. It's rounding it off, it's ballparking, and it's not pinpoint accurate. So it's a ballpark. We should be going on for about another minute, and then we'll have our games. In fact, it's almost half done. It's 40% done, 2/5 of the way finished. So give it a minute, and what it's going to pull up is going to pull up exactly what we asked for. Those 5-ply in exact order. Half done. Another thing about this status bar, please notice how it starts out red and it slowly gets greener and greener and greener as it proceeds into the search. When you get into the high 90s, it gets to be like a bright screaming green. 2/3 of the way done now, 67%, but it's getting greener and greener as we go. It kind of goes from a red to an olive green, and then the green gets brighter. 3/4, 4/5, 9/10, and it looks like we're 10 or so seconds away. And here we are. Very few games. There's only 11 games. But notice that it's our exact sequence. Bishop takes, king takes, queen checks, king moves, somebody mates. There we go. The knight comes in and checkmates. Same deal with the next game. It's the exact sequence. Bishop takes, king takes. Now it's any white piece moves with check, king retreats, any white piece comes in with mate. The reason why people ask to do this search, this game is a prime example of why, because of the combination that you can play here. The bishop is clearing a line, is sacrificing itself to clear a line. I'll throw in a little chess explanation along with the software explanation here. The king or the bishop comes in, takes the pawn, the king takes. Now there's a line here that has been opened up. The H file is now open. So now the queen can scoot over, driving the king back. Black may think, well, hey, I'm fine, but then bing, there's the knight comes in. The knight can't be captured. The king can't move away. The king is trapped. The knight ends up mating because all the king's flight squares are controlled by the queen. That's why that bishop sacrifice on h7 is can be so devastating, because it's clearing a line, clearing a path for one of the heavy pieces, the queen or the rook, to slide over to the h file, control these squares, and then a knight can jump in and checkmate the king. That's typically how it works. But if with a longer sequence, as we saw previously with the previous search, where I had a length of 10 instead of a length of 5, there are other possibilities in there as well, where if you go back to a length of 10 and do this search again, I'm not going to do it again, but you saw earlier where you have possibilities where knight can come in and check, drive the king away, and then that allows a queen to come in and mate, or some other combinations to break up the king side, and then a mate results. So that's why the bishop sacrifice in h7 is studied a lot by many chess players. It's a very handy tool, very common motif. And by knowing how to use a maneuver search in ChessBase, you can find those games. Typically, when you're reading a chess book that talks about the bishop sacrifice, tells you how to do it, they'll give you 1, 2, maybe 3 examples. You go into ChessBase, you can pull up a whole lot more examples. That's why this maneuver search is a cool thing to learn how to use, because you can find lots and lots of study material to improve your game by example using ChessBase 10. That's what I've done here, by the way, to show you something by example. I've given you an example of how to use a maneuver search. I'm not showing you every single last little feature of this dialogue. Hopefully I've kind of whetted your appetite and given you the impetus to go and look into the help file and read more about how this dialogue works. It's very flexible. You'd be amazed at the number of things that you can pull up using the maneuver search in ChessBase, and it's actually one of the most underutilized features of the program. Not because people don't understand it, but I think people don't really understand what they can do with it. They know it's here, but they go, what do I need that for? Well, I've just showed you. You can pull up amazing things that can really improve your game by studying and going over them in ChessBase 10. With ChessBase and a large database of games, you can find lots and lots and lots of stuff to help you improve your game. Well, that's going to do it for this week's ChessBase workshop. Next time around, I think we're going to start looking at ChessBase 11, which is forthcoming. Should be out in mid-October. And we're going to take a sneak peek at ChessBase 11, possibly next time around in ChessBase Workshop. If not next week, then very soon. But until next week, regardless of what we cover in the next workshop, please do have fun.